So I want to welcome DEA Special Agent in Charge right here in New York, Frank Tarentino. Thank you for being here on Picks on Politics to talk about this.
Thank you, Dan.
It's alarming, right? And
Yes.
we know drugs have been here, but now it's impacting children and a 1-year-old losing their life. How serious, Mr. Tarentino, is fentanyl here in New York?
So, Dan, this is the most urgent threat in the United States right now, and this is why the DEA is committed to doing more in terms of stemming the flow of fentanyl flowing into the United States. This threat is real, and it's evident in the most recent tragedy that played out in the Bronx, and we're deeply affected by that. You know, the men and women of the DEA struggle every single day to do their absolute best to save lives, and to see this play out in the Bronx is gut-wrenching, and heartfelt condolences go out to that family.
Yeah, absolutely. But then you see things like a trap door, right? And those are things that people have seen play out in pop culture and TV shows and movies, right? These trap doors of where drugs are.
Yeah.
How much of that is actually reality that you face every single time you go into a drug raid?
So it's pretty typical of a drug organization to utilize different traps and or concealment locations or hidden compartments throughout the process of trafficking their drugs. Many drugs are smuggled throughout the United States in hidden compartments in vehicles, in different types of machinery. It's often in parcels that come from different parts of the United States or from abroad. And so this is not that atypical. It's pretty standard in a drug trafficking organization. And we see this play out.
This may seem like a silly question, but when you hear like the term kilo and 4 kilos, how much is that really?
So most drugs are going to be today mixed with fentanyl.
Okay.
And that's alarming. And that's why we're calling these poisonings and not overdoses.
Right.
Because a lot of times people are buying cocaine and they're actually buying cocaine laced with fentanyl.
But a kilo is a large amount.
It is a large amount. And so if we're talking about a pure kilo of fentanyl, in other words, the entire kilo is fentanyl, that has up to 500,000 lethal doses in it.
Oh my gosh.
But what these traffickers will do is they'll take that kilo of fentanyl and they'll break it up into pieces and mix it into other kilos of cocaine and heroin and methamphetamine to increase the high and to drive the addiction aspect of that particular drug.
And their profitability.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you.
Number one goal.
The drug cartels, right? Is that the number one issue? And how do you stop the flow of the drugs here to New York, right? Because the folks who were operating that daycare allegedly were part of a larger organization. I don't want to talk about that case specifically, but what are you seeing as the issue?
So this is our top priority, to defeat the cartels. And to do that, we have to fully understand the scope and their operating capability throughout the United States, but also on a global scale. So we've done that. We understand where they are in the United States. They're in every state, all 50 states in the U.S. They're operating in over 40 countries around the world. We're looking to take out the entire network. And this is identifying the entire supply chain of that criminal network. And so we're laser focused.
Talk to me about that. I don't mean to interrupt you. Talk to me about that supply chain, right? Because it doesn't just start here in New York. It came from somewhere, and somewhere else in the U.S. leading back to somewhere else in the world.
That's right. So it all begins in China, and in some cases India. But these Chinese chemical company, they're the ones that are developing these precursor chemicals that really have no legitimate use. And those precursor chemicals, and there's a lot of different variants of these precursor chemicals, they're flowing into Mexico unregulated. And once the Mexican cartels get these precursor chemicals, they're using these very rudimentary laboratories in the jungles or in the backwoods of Mexico to then synthesize the fentanyl into powder and pill form. And then that flows into the United States in a whole bunch of different ways. It comes through parcels, it comes through land, or over the ocean, or through the air. It comes in every single possible imaginary way.
So how do you stop it when there's so many different entry points?
So we have a strategic approach, and that is targeting the different facilitators and organizers of the cartels. And we are working with our state and local counterparts and sharing that information and that intelligence so that we can attack the network from all angles, and not just here in New York, but across the United States. Every DEA office in the DEA is working closely with our counterparts to make a significant inroad and impact this cartel. The Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels are the most dominant cartels that we're talking about.
Okay, keep us posted. It's not an easy job you have here, but it's an important one, and I want to keep the conversation going because this is an important one to have for so many parents. Mr. Tarentino, I appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.